you bought this tape, hopefully, and it would do my heart good and everybody good if you follow through and you just keep going. I'm showing you my way, the easy way, as far as I'm concerned, and there's no end to what you can do. So I'm going to change now to some roof brown, and we're going to run some streaks, and we're going to do this thing up right proper. Okay, now we're going to use some roof brown, which is obviously the second in command here from the rust. I'm going to put a couple of drops of extender in here because I'm going to be making some real fine little lines, and this will just help slow down the drying process. Now we're going to come in here and we're going to do the old rust and the new rust. And if you notice, not here, but on the real life, that things that have been rusted for a long time usually start from the center with the dark and work out. And that's why you get the two different colors of rust, and you get the effects on the tops of fenders. Next time you pass by a junkyard, or depending on what neighborhood you live in, check out the neighbor's car. If he's got an old junker sitting someplace, check it out, see how the thing is rusted, and where the new rust and the old rust and how they all come together. That's the name of this game, knowing what things look like before you start. So we're just going to go over here, touch up that old rust, or the new rust, give you some old rust. And I told you earlier that I was going to make that bright, shiny new glow go away of the black, which is what we're going to do right now. And you will notice that I back off away from the object, and you what we call fog it on, and you just fog right over that black, and instantly that shine is gone, and you get what we call the opaque, old, nasty, decrepit look that we're all seeking here. So this is almost ready to Q-tip. I'm running through these processes here for you people at a pretty good pace because there are things that I have to show you that if I went on as I should, you'd have to buy 5 tapes. And so I'm giving you basic principles right here of how easy it is to do this. And we're just going to put a little color on the center of this bed here, leave the outside edges a little bit lighter, and just rough up the top here maybe a little bit. There. Okay. Now, we're going to Q-tip this guy, and you'll see an amazing transformation of where the metal parts are emerge here, because this is what makes this thing look like it should. Okay, Q-tip time. This is the highlight time. This is the fun part because this is what brings out all the magic that you just covered up. And like I say, there's no need to mask all this stuff because you know how long it would take you to mask this thing? Seemingly in eternity. So you just paint right over it and then wipe it off. Not all of it completely, but just enough to bring out the chrome, the shiny parts. Make it like you would see it on the street or in a junkyard in an old field. I live in California. We got a lot of desert area, And you can still to this day drive down by an old farmhouse or out someplace in the desert. Of course, out there they're full of bullet holes, but still in all, there's a lot of old relics still hanging around out there. And this is where you get the idea is that this is what happens to something when it just sits out there and Mother Nature takes its toll. It's fun. Airbrushing, as in any part of a hobby, is fun. Everything is made to be fun. People do hobbies because they want to do something different. They want to sit down and relax. This is a great elixir. This is a great tension reliever. Got a bad day at the office, just go out in the garage or wherever it is you play with your stuff and do something like this. Take it out on the truck. Don't go home and kick the dog or something. Just go out and fire up the airbrush and dirty up something. Have a good time. This is a fun hobby. And it's cheap and easy. Your greatest expense in any hobby will be the right tools. Buy the right tools and they'll last you forever as far as the airbrush industry is concerned, almost forever. Whether you use a compressor, you can use anything that will supply you air as long as you can regulate it down to maybe 30 pounds, 35 pounds. I've seen people use service station compressors. They just put a regulator on it, anything to get air. That's all an airbrush needs is air. I use a Badger Model 180-11 compressor, which is called a demand compressor. In other words, it only works when you compress the trigger. And but anything will suffice, I would suggest, with all intents and purposes, of buying a compressor. You can buy even compressed air. It comes in a can. But if you're going to continue with this hobby and have fun with it, get yourself a good, reliable compressor. Buy a couple of nice Badger brushes, and they'll last you an eternity. All you have to do is clean them. Let me lean on that cleaning evident a little bit. It's an airbrush. A quality airbrush is a tool. It's not a toy. It's not some plastic thing that you buy for the kiddies at Christmas and they use it for a week, throw it in the corner, and it ends up in the drawer in 2 weeks, and you never see it again. A good quality brush like the ones I'm using, Badger Lake makes, like I said before, they make a lot of different brushes for a lot of different applications. And you're the boss. You can decide what you want. Like I said, I use the Model 180-11. Oh, no, that's the compressor, but I use the 100G or 100LG, big cup or little cup. I use the gravity feed because I can get down into windows like this. Inside you can open doors, you can paint gauges, you can paint in there. If I have a jar hanging down there, I can't do that. Jars are fine if you're painting big things and you need a lot of paint. I use all the different kinds of brushes. But for this application, I would suggest the gravity feed, because once you get used to this, you can get into corners, under things, and down around things. The only thing that I suggest is that if you use a gravity feed, Badger, again, in their infinite wisdom, has made a chrome cap that fits on here because it's a natural tendency. A lot of times, instead of turning the model over, you go like this. Well, you do that one time without the cap. So if you do have one of these, make sure you put the cap on it. Okay, let me continue on here. We'll do the wheels, and this guy is just about done. Like I said before, there's no need to mask. You could take the tires off, but after a while, you get pretty lackadaisy when you're weathering things, and you know what you have to do and what you don't have to do. So you just remove it with the Q-tip. Much easier. Now you watch this wheel spring to life when I Q-tip it here. You don't take all the paint off, just enough to show that that it is rusty. You can even see the name Chevrolet still on the hubcap there. You get it down in there and you can see there. Now you got an old wheel. This is the way it's supposed to look. Don't be afraid to get your fingers dirty sometimes in this hobby too. It's not the end of the world if you get a little paint on your fingers. It won't hurt you, and it just enhances everything you're doing. Now, were I home, I would probably take this out into the yard, or I have a can that I have taken dirt out of the yard and ground into powder. I would throw it all over this truck, blow off what is there, and the excess would stay there, and you would have real dirt. And that's what happened to that other truck that I had here. And if you want to really get going on it, why, you just put a little water on the ground, run the truck through the water like that, and get the wheels wet, then run it through the dirt, and then you got mud all over the wheels and everything. This is reality, folks. You know, this, when we started, it's out of the box. If you want to weather something, beat it up and make it look like it's really real. This is what you do. Beat it up, run it through the dirt, change its whole character, but 90% of the time it's a good character, and you've had a lot of fun, and you've just made another toy, an example of your skills, and your friends will like it, you'll love it, and you can have a lot of fun with this. So there, basically, if we wanted to, we could spend more time, go along and highlight and run across the top of the fenders here, remove a little paint like hand wear or people leaning over it where it's worn some of the paint off through the rust or it's rusted around it. So it's okay to have some of the paint pop out like this. See, I keep emphasizing that weathering has no prototype, and whenever it looks good to you and when you think that's the way it should look, and then it's perfect, because nobody's going to criticize it. They can't. So there, I think we've established the fact that you can do a lot of things with an airbrush, and this is just another phase. So when we're through with this and we get it all cleaned up and I set it out here, I'm going to show you a few other practical things that you can practice on if you feel uneasy with spending $4 or $5 or 400 or 500 or 1,000 on a toy. I'll show you a couple items that you can practice on forever and ever, and it's free. Okay, as I promised, now, after we've done that truck, this is the practical, cheapest way in the world to practice. This is a cat food can. Obviously, this is a soda can. I prefer beer cans, but in this case, we'll use sodas. These are cream dispensers you can get at any restaurant. They make beautiful trash cans. And I'll show you here in a few brief moments how we do this. So like I said before, if you're reluctant to start on something that you think is a real valuable piece, this is the way to go. Start with the same paint, same process, same everything. But I'm going to show you how quickly we can make these things. That this will look like it's a can that's been out there in the desert for 10 years. I won't paint the whole thing so you can see what it looks like before and after, but we're going to have some fun. This is where the fun comes in. When you're home, and like I keep saying, you practice, practice, practice. This is the way to go because it's free. Cream dispensers. In the gauge trains and the scale I work in, these are perfect. Sometimes you have to be careful. These are pretty light, but you adapt. Like everything else, you adapt. So we'll let that little guy dry there. I'm going to paint them all with the rust first. Normally, I use these, I turn them upside down, and I take a piece of balsa wood, glue it on the top of this. You lay a couple of popsicle sticks across the top like that. And then when you paint it and you weather it up, It looks just like an old water tank sitting out there alongside the desert someplace by a railroad or any place. So first we do the rust. This still has cat food in it. I would suggest you use the cat food first, but depending if you're in a hurry, you can just leave the food in there and open it later for your favorite feline. For the intention purposes here, we just use one that's still full. Plenty. Okay. Now we'll do this upright. The beauty of these, see, when you get through, you can just put a kink in it. It looks like it's really old, but we'll do that after it's weathered. See all those little blurps coming out there? It's because I've got a full bore here, and I just feather the thing, and sometimes it makes those little bubbles. That will represent rust blisters. I forgot to mention rust blisters. Sometimes when things rust and they get real old, and depending on the material they're on, it will blister and it'll form a bubble and then break. So you'll see when this is done what we've done. I'm going to leave the bottom unweathered so you can remember what this guy started life as. And if I didn't want to wipe out all the graphics, I'll leave some over here where you can still see through, but it'll still look old. Okay? And for the top of the can, if I'm going to, I use these for boilers on the layout or whatever you want. Lay a piece of wood on across the top, put a couple of little strips across the top, a few nuts and bolts like we did on the railroad car. You can bend up some old paper clips, straighten them out, and then bend them around the side and plug them in and make ladders out of them. You use clothing snaps like goes on your clothing. You can buy them at any craft store. You glue them on the side. They make perfect gauges. And when you weather them, never know the difference. So now we're going to put a little roof brown in here. Don't even have to change the color for this because we're not getting real specific with this guy. We'll just put in a little roof brown. I'll check my tip here. Wipe off what little residue might have been in there. Put some roof brown, and then we'll have two different colors on this guy. Will be a done deal. You can see how quick you can practice here. Make this thing look like it should. And you'll notice I didn't even wipe the residue out of the bowl because the first couple of times I squeeze that trigger, it's going to be brown, just like it is there. So when you're painting large objects like this and you're not real particular, no need to do all that stuff. Now for the dark part, you go around the outside edge, basically. And then we'll just go around the top, not all the way down, just around the top a little bit. So you can see probably a little bit of the metal still showing through on that can there. We just want to make it look like it's been old. And now we'll just run a few strips down the side like this, like where maybe the rust has come down over a period of time, bleeds down. But for practical purposes, for practice, you haven't wasted anything. You haven't destroyed any old models that you may have had or anything that you prized. You've just ruined a cat food can. And believe me, I have 3 cats at home, and I could do this forever and not use all the cans. So, there. Now, it didn't take very long. You haven't wasted much of anything as far as you know, in expense in any way, and you haven't really ruined anything. And we'll take this old cream dispenser right here, and we're going to do the same thing to this trash can.